Let's see how it performs. As promised, today we're going to test my prototype of the folding sword from Dishonored. This is what it looks like now, and with a flick of the wrist, we've got a sword. Okay, and just like that, got it back in there. I've got a bunch of different tests set up so we can see what I have to improve for the second version. Let's have a quick look at what the main problems are right now, as I think. Open it up. First pivot comes out. Here in the handle it is hitting against metal right here, so it can't get any further than this. Once that happens, the other part locks into place as well. And then I have to fold the handle back up, and this piece prevents the blade from going anywhere. It only stays in sword mode while I have my hand right here, but I made it this way because most of the force will be in this direction, pushing against the metal part right here, so it should be relatively stable. I probably used this mechanism between 50 to 100 times already, so it was supposed to really lock, but right now, because the metal of the outer cladding right here is pretty worn off, it's actually more of a friction folder, because if I apply a certain amount of pressure right here, I can just fold it over, which is also what I did in order to go back into handle mode. Now slap it so that the inertia overcomes that resistance, and then I can fold it back in. Now we obviously want to see how sturdy this upper segment would be when cutting, because I can imagine, see, just slapping it on here was already enough to bend it in. So I'm pretty certain that this part won't cut as much, but we've still got this one right here. Rather soft target, and I'll try to hit with the front part, which will be the weak one. Okay. Good thing we've got the slow-mo, because I have no idea what happened there. Ah, okay. So it snapped all the way back. But one thing to notice, even if that happens, you can see that it's pretty safe for the wearer, because the blade can't go back all the way to actually hurt your hand. But we clearly didn't go through. One different thing I wanted to try is, I mean, obviously, if you know that your tool doesn't work in this way, why should you try to cut with the weakest part? So let's see if I can actually cut this thing while using something more towards the hilt of the blade. And I'll try to hit with the middle this time. Oh, damn. Okay, so I don't think it makes sense to try anything that's more rigid. So it doesn't work like it does in the game. One thing I wanted to note though is parrying. When you're parrying with the piece up here, like we just seen, it wouldn't make much sense because it just folds back in. But as far as I understand, you usually don't parry with this because you don't have a lot of leverage right here. So you would parry with this piece anyways. And you can see this is pretty sturdy. But I would actually argue that for an assassin like Corvo is, it's more important for your sword to be able to stab. I whipped out some foam floor padding and my favorite pair of trousers, just to kind of imitate a layer of clothing that would be on top. I also got a little bit of the butted chainmail right here, but as far as I know, the guards are actually not wearing any protective clothing, so they probably wouldn't wear any chainmail. There we have it. Let's see. The rigid areas are the first segment going in this direction and the first segment going in that direction, which means if I pierce from below upward, it should push the first segment into the handle. So this little bit of friction shouldn't matter very much, but let's see. So that I can actually fit between those two pieces, I'm going to use both hands for this. Okay, held up pretty nicely. A little bit more force. I mean, I would say this penetrated pretty well. Let's try it like this. Back in there. And then, of course, we've got the famous one going from the side. So let's try that one. So get it out. So I added some 6-in-1 butted mail, which is still plenty strong for butted mail at least. Okay, you can see, fold it inwards, But obviously you can just keep at it until you find a point where you can go through. Honestly, I'm pretty happy with how it turned out, because it's a lot sturdier than I thought. But yeah, obviously striking isn't an option with this design. But, you know, for an assassin, I would say this is still plenty nice. Okay, here we are. So let's have a look at this. First thing I want to say is that I'm pretty happy with the overall dimensions of this. Easy to grip, and I don't have very large hands, so. Another thing to mention, this only weighs 700 grams, which is very light. So I think we can all agree that this thing, as it is right now, isn't really made for cutting. Pretty sad result, even with the first segment right here. You can also see there wasn't any wiggle room when we started, and now we've actually got quite a lot of movements. Here's the two things I have in mind right now. So with this design, where this is just basically friction folder, I would maybe make this out of hardened steel so it doesn't wear off as easily as it does right now, because the friction was a lot, significantly more when I started out with the video. As I said, I probably did this like over 100 times already, and the metal just is pretty worn off. So we've got less and less resistance each time I'm doing this, and then also do a better job at the connection right here, because as I said in the last video, there's a big gap, so we only got like a very tiny little point where there is actually contact. So obviously the stress focuses on that point and it wears off even faster. So this would be like one thing. We've got the sword that's pretty good at stabbing and is very easily disengaged to run off again, I guess. So for someone like Corvo that does a lot of parkour, I guess. Parkour! Very helpful. So you can just stab your target, put this thing back and be gone. If we are looking at something that's supposed to be a proper fighting weapon where you can slash just as good as stab, with this design I could fold these segments from the first one so that there's a lot more contact and we've got a better lock. It would be a lot sturdier, but then also I would have to manually disengage the lock so that I can fold it back in. But we've still got the advantage of carrying this thing in the, let's call it compact mode, and then you can just as quickly deploy it, and you've got a pretty sturdy sword. Then again, you can't disengage as quickly without fiddling around the top. Let me know in the comments what you think would be more important for something like this. Obviously, I'll try to find a solution where I got the best of both worlds, but maybe let me know your opinion in the comments if you think it's more important to have a sturdy cutting sword, or if you think that it's more important that you can very easily disengage this back into the compact mode. Maybe I'll actually make two versions, who knows.
Sometimes maybe good, sometimes maybe shit.